Hey everybody, welcome back to College Football Fix with your host James O'Brien on Stream City Radio, Stream City Sports, and streamcity.org is where you can find us. Anyhow, something I've seen done by many people many times, so I thought I'd do it myself. Why not? Hey, everybody always likes to talk about expansion and realignment and all those things. And what would you do if you had total control, nobody to answer to, you could put this thing together any way you wanted? Okay. And I've seen it floated out a couple different ways. And, well, the College Football Fix show that we do, we're going to look at about 6 different ways we can align this thing that all would work. This is not even one of those. This is just, okay, I'm just aligning everything. I don't have to come up with anything outside of that. How would I put it together? And to me, it's pretty simple. And I did not only what would be the power group, but also the, what is now the group of 5. So went in on both. So we will do, we'll go ahead and jump in and do the power conferences first. That's the one that everybody wants to do. Nobody ever addresses the second half of that equation, which is what are you doing with that bottom group? So, not really the bottom group, but the other group, the group that tends to get left out of this equation. Okay, so here's what I'm doing. One of the things, if I'm in charge of this, there's no independence teams. Everybody goes into a conference. Everybody. And I've seen this done a lot of times. People will put 10 teams in a conference. And I started out, that's what I did. Did 10-team conferences. But I ended up with a couple teams that just were out of place for where I wanted to put them. I got the conferences put together. And basically it came down to, I really had no place to put Central Florida and Cincinnati. So you could do the 10 teams, but to keep it aligned the way I would want to put it together, those 2 teams don't have a home. So we're doing 11-team conferences. And I like the idea of playing everybody in a conference. 10-team, round robin, regular season. Why not? Makes sense. Let's do it. So we end up with the easiest place to start is the SEC. Because the SEC, I'm putting all the teams back, or getting rid of everybody who wasn't there, with the exception of, everybody who wasn't there when this whole expansion thing really broke and went crazy. We're going back to Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. Those are your 10 core teams. They've been there forever. Always been there. Now, if we're doing 11, we could keep one of the teams that joined the conference. But I'm going to do something different. I'm actually going to go back and get a team that left the conference years ago. Because they're a team, what I've got is 77 teams. I know, it's an odd number. It is. So that's, if you don't like the 77, I'm sorry. But we went with 7 conferences. I could go to 80 teams and have an 8th conference. And we could look at that real quick, because that's a very pretty simple equation as well. But so Tulane joins. They come back in the SEC. They're a team that I think if you're looking at a group of 5 teams, they're a team that has earned as much of an opportunity to be in with the big boys as anybody. So there's your 11-team SEC. Tulane added to the 10 old-time teams. And, you could have gone Tech, but Tech's gone over to the ACC. We left them in the ACC. South Carolina, another team that, could have gone either way. Next up, Big Ten. This is another one that to me was very easy to do. When it was 10 teams, The old Big Ten. I mean, it's simple. Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Northwestern, Ohio State, Purdue, Wisconsin. Got to add an 11th team. Could have kept Penn State in there. They kind of fall in the same boat that that South Carolina did with the SEC. It would have been just fine to leave them right where they were. Didn't. We're going to put Notre Dame in the Big Ten, which is going to make a lot of people happy. The other option was, and we can look at the other options, but that's the option I went with. Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Northwestern, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin. If I'm putting this together, nobody gets to be independent. Independence keeps you from having a playoff system. And I will talk about that because I'm going to put a playoff system in this thing too. So there you go. Anyhow, so there's my 11-team Big Ten. We're going to leave it named the Big Ten. If they can have 18 and be the Big Ten, they can certainly have 11 and be the Big Ten. Next up, the old Pac-12, Pac-10. Remember the Pac-10? Arizona, Arizona State, Cal, Oregon, Oregon State, Stanford, UCLA, USC, Washington, and Washington State. We need to add an 11th team. It's going to be San Diego State. Another team in the state of California. A team that, even though coming off a bad year, they've been up and down. They're as good a grab as anybody. To me, it kind of came down to them or UNLV. Those, to me, were the two teams that I was looking at for this 11th team in the Pac-10. So there's your Pac-10. Arizona, Arizona State, Cal, Oregon, Oregon State, Stanford, San Diego State, UCLA, USC, Washington, Washington State. Almost makes too much sense. So what you're seeing is a lot of the old rivalries back and putting geography back into this thing, doing what makes the most sense. Now, next thing I'm doing is I'm bringing back the old Southwest Conference. And yes, that means Rice. So those 9 teams. Arkansas goes back. Arkansas, Baylor, Houston, SMU, Rice, Texas, Texas A&M, TCU, and Texas Tech. 9 teams. You need 2 more. Where are we going to go get them? Not leaving the state of Texas. We'll stay right there. Texas San Antonio has shown they've got the chops. Let's bring them on up. Along with North Texas. So there's your 11-team Southwest Conference. If we do, so now we're starting to get into rearranging a little bit more of the map, obviously. So the next place I'm going is back to the ACC. And I'm going to strip everything down. We've obviously taken Maryland out of the Big Ten. So I'm picking them, sticking them right back in the ACC. So you got the old-time ACC schools. Clemson, Duke, Maryland, North Carolina, NC State, Virginia, Wake Forest, and Georgia Tech. There's your 8. Who else is going to stay? We're going to leave Florida State in there. It makes sense to me for them to be in that conference, so we're leaving them there. We're moving South Carolina into the ACC. They were there once. We're putting them back. It's been a long time. Welcome back, guys. And finally, putting Central Florida in there. Now, it could have been Central Florida. It could be Miami. You could go either way with this. But I chose Central Florida. There's no wrong answer. It could be Miami. Maybe I like Miami there better. But we're going to leave it at Central Florida. So there's your ACC. Now I'm going to start reviving some old conferences. One of which is the Big 8. Bringing them back. Putting all 8 teams that used to be in the Big 8 right back in the Big 8. So that means Nebraska left the Big 10. They're back. Texas, Texas A&M, Missouri left the SEC. Texas A&M are in the Southwest Conference. I've lost my mind. Boise State, to me, is a team you could add to this. But you got Colorado, you've got Iowa, you got Kansas, Kansas State, Missouri, Nebraska. Oklahoma is back from the SEC. That's one of them. Oklahoma State. To me, a no-brainer is to take the two Utah schools in BYU and Utah that are currently in the Big 12, put them in the Big 8. I know, that gives us 10. And then, to me, Boise State is that good 11th team to go into what was the old Big 8. So that leaves us one conference left to put together, and that's the old Big East. And I know there's a Big East in basketball. This could be the Big East in football. Come up with a new name. Take the American name. I don't care what you do with it. Doesn't really matter. But we're pulling from all over the place. But these are all teams that, at one time, with the exception of one, were members of the old Big East. And that's Boston College, Cincinnati, Louisville, Miami, Penn State lands here, along with Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Rutgers, Temple, Virginia Tech, and West Virginia. We're bringing back some great old rivalries. To see West Virginia playing Pitt every year, to play Penn State every year, to see Pitt and Penn State play each other every year. You know, this is basically the old Big East, but it's all those Eastern independents from back in the 80s. So to me, that is a well-rounded, nice conference. You know, and it's very regional. And that's what we have, the recurring theme here. You know, the Big Ten is the old Big Ten. And you drop to Indiana, who, oh, by the way, falls right in the middle of it. So it's a perfect fit. The SEC, you're bringing back an old team. You're not adding any distance travel-wise. They're actually closer to the rest of the conference than LSU is. So that makes perfect sense from a travel perspective. The old Southwest Conference, it's 10 Texas teams in Arkansas now. Makes a lot of sense. The ACC, it's all, you know, you've got a couple Florida teams, you've got a couple South Carolina teams, you've got 4 teams out of North Carolina, you got a Virginia team, you got Maryland. Right up the coast, it makes a ton of sense. The Big 8, you had the old Big 8. What we've added to it is a couple teams in Utah, which makes sense, right next door to Colorado, and then Boise State. So once again, the travel all makes sense. The Big East, probably, they might have the worst travel of the bunch. Boston to Miami, probably about as far a trip as anybody's going to make on here, other than those West Coast teams. Washington to San Diego State, it's a pretty good trip too. So, but still make complete sense from a geographical standpoint. You're getting rivalries back. You're keeping rivalries. I guess the only case you can make for this is if you put Miami back in the ACC, you keep that Florida State-Miami game as a regular season rivalry game because Florida State's going to play Florida in that last game of the season. You know that's going to be the case. And are they going to want to tie in with Miami for the other one? Because what we are doing away with is crossover playing the teams out of the group of 5. Not playing them anymore. Everybody's going to play inside this group of 77 teams. Yes, I know that means somebody's going to have the last week off, and that's a problem. So we could go to 80. The 80 team didn't look that different. But like I said, what I didn't have, when I did 70, and that was what I originally did, the problem with 70, and it wouldn't be that different because I wouldn't move anything around if we did I would move things slightly. The ACC would have been the obvious. Clemson, Duke, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Maryland, North Carolina, NC State, South Carolina, Virginia, Wake Forest. Big Ten would have been Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Northwestern, Ohio State, Purdue, and Wisconsin. The Big 8 just would not have had Boise State. It would have gotten the 2 teams out of Utah, and it would have been the old Big 8. The Big East would have been Boston College, Louisville, Miami, Ohio. Notre Dame lands there now because I'm not going to disrupt the old Big 10 because it was 10 teams. Them and the SEC are locked in that 10-team set, as is the Pac-10. Those teams all are going to have their old teams and go right back to what they were So basically, you're going back to the 80s with the exception of, the Big East is going to look different with Boston College, Louisville, Miami, Notre Dame, Penn State, Pitt, Syracuse, Rutgers, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, the old Eastern Independents. The Southwest Conference in this situation is the old 9 teams plus Tulane. Because if I'm moving 2 teams up and I don't have to move 2 teams up, but what I'm doing is for geography, Central Florida and Cincinnati get cut out of this situation. So Tulane's going to get that spot in the Southwest Conference because Cincinnati and Central Florida make no sense there. Now, you could have put one of them in the Big East or both of them in the Big East and move somebody else out, but who are you moving out? These other teams have longer traditions playing at the highest level of football, so they kind of get left out of the deal. If you add the 8th team, because Rice also comes up, and I'm not leaving Rice out. Not that they really earned it, but we're going back to what it used to be. So, if we were to say we're going to go to 80 teams with this situation, that happens easily as well by now I'm going to create one more 10-team conference. I'm going to pull Tulane out of the Southwest Conference, and I'm going to put Texas San Antonio in their place. So that gets them back to 10. And outside of that, we're just adding a conference because we're going to put Central Florida, Tulane, and Cincinnati in there, along with Memphis and South Florida. 5 from the East, let's go 5 from the West. San Diego State, Fresno State, Boise State. Let's see, you could do Colorado State, and who you want to pick for the last one? UNLV. And that's a 10-team conference. 5 from the East, 5 from the West. It's got some travel in it, but you're talking about a bunch of teams that are just going to be glad to be part of the highest level. So that would be my look at doing that top group and how I would break them down. We'll come back into the group of 5 because there's a lot of teams coming up from FCS that are going to play in the group of 5 because we're going to get them to 77 teams as well. So with that said, we'll take a break. We'll be back with more Stream City Radio, Stream City Sports in just a moment.